Greetings, nerds. This is SNN Nerd. I'm your host, Sarah Belmont, and with me, as always, is our Mr. Producer, Will Polk. How are you doing tonight, Will?
I'm doing very well, Sarah. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing fine. You know,
that's good.
It's fall. Fall.
Yeah. Happy first day of fall.
It's been fall at my house for a month.
Yeah, I know. But today, I guess today is officially the equinox. So, but yeah, it's I'm looking forward to cooler weather. It was nice this evening on my I was walking the dog. So, but you know, speaking of fall, and you know, we're like loaded with like TV shows again, which I know we're like having the rack and stack as far as like what we're going to cover these few weeks. But
well, yeah, it's a lot at once, and I'll be perfectly honest, I have not watched any of the like most recent Lord of the Rings or Star Wars episodes.
Yeah, I did finally. I haven't watched Lord of the Rings. I caught up to this week's episode of Stargirl. So I haven't watched Stargirl episode 4 yet. But of course, you know, tonight we got Andor and also the latest She-Hulk and House of the Dragon. Can't wait to talk about those three. And I also did manage to sneak in the new, I guess, the reboot of Quantum Leap this week.
Mm-hmm. That was happening.
You forgot?
Yeah, I when I saw it on the rundown, I'm like, oh
yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, I know we talked about it. Just one of those things like, oh yeah, here's a show that I thought about just checking out, and not necessarily proposing that it becomes a part of the already loaded schedule that we have, but I did check it out because, you know, obviously it's a reboot of the and a continuation of the original show that aired in the late 80s, early 90s on NBC with Scott Bakula. And Scott Bakula did go to Twitter because to explain why he ultimately passed on appearing in this new version, but I will have to say they did in the pilot. In the episode this week, they were able to weave in the original show, and even had a picture of Scott Bakula as I was watching it. I kind of laughed at Sam Beckett. I was like, Scott's, you know, he's gonna get another royalty check for this for the hologram image that they had from Ziggy and this show. But you know, I will say the good things I liked about it was just a continuation of the original series. Had a little bit of the feeling of the original show. It as far as, you know, the basic construct, continuing the story that Sam, of course, is still lost in time. That the new Sam Beckett, his name's Dr. Ben Soon. He is not as likable as Sam, but it's, you know, and another difference that this show is it's more of an ensemble cast because, you know, the you know, of course, just like the original show, the Dr. Soon leaps prematurely, and of course gets lost, and the team tries to bring him back. But there's a lot more present day action taking place in this show that we had in the original series, but because it being a more ensemble show. So those were some of the things that I thought were maybe could be good things, but it did have the, you know, still had the basic premise, trying to fix things that were wrong for a person to you know, what was make wrong, make it right. And I will say the bad pieces of it, the special effects, I have to say the CW shows actually have better special effects than network than this show, but obviously. Yeah, but you know, obviously it was maybe it'll get better over the course of the series, especially if it gets picked up for a full season. I think, you know, with these shows, they only order, you know, I guess 13 to see how they go, and maybe they'll sprinkle in higher budget. But that was one of the things that was kind of disappointing.
What is it on?
NBC.
NBC.
And,
okay, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
A current TV show, a current reboot of an older show on network television.
On broadcast, yeah. It's broadcast first on NBC, and then they stream it on Peacock the next day.
Yeah.
So
sure they have poor digital or CGI effects.
Yeah. But the thing is, CW is broadcast, but I will say, the Flash, for example, the special effects were so much better. And the thing is, because like I said, given that they have a lot of the show set in present day, because I would hope that they would have paid a little bit more attention to that. But especially given the streaming platforms now, and I guess this is, really is an example of how streaming really is where everything is going, instead of the old traditional broadcast networks. But like I said, I will probably add it to my weekly rotation of things I watch on my own time. Give it a chance. But I enjoyed it. It was an okay start. I have seen things recently that put me to sleep. This did not. So hey, that's a good thing.
Yeah. Talking about things that we are watching in our own time, for listeners, they know that I am a fan of A Handmaid's Tale, and this is one of the few shows, even though I have binge seasons, I've found that if I go at my own pace, I will take it an episode at a time. And so I'm one episode behind because they dropped 2 at the start of the season. Elizabeth Moss is just such a fucking brilliant actress. It is astonishing. There's a scene in the premiere episode where she pulls the Matt Smith in this premiere episode where
wow.
I have to say, now Matt Smith, all episode you didn't hear, but granted, you also didn't see, he was not a prominent figure in that episode. He had very critical parts. Wasn't speaking. You follow her throughout the entire episode, but I swear to God, for at least 20, 30 minutes of the episode, she doesn't talk.
Wow.
And yet you know exactly what's going on. And the emotional roller coaster of that first episode is just brilliant in my mind. I've watched the next 2. I don't think they're as good as that first one. But I'm very curious about where this season goes, especially since they've already announced that there will be a 6th and final season of the show. And I was talking to a friend of mine who's also watching it, and we both agreed why this show is so successful, besides the brilliant acting, it's because these writers, every season, if not every episode, will write themselves into a corner, and you think to yourself, well, that's a dead end. And they logically write themselves out.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all you can ask for.
Yeah.
In a writer's room, is we want there to be stakes. We want to feel like you really don't know what's going to happen. I do have an opinion that I think by the end of the series, June is either going to go back to Gilead or probably go back to Gilead. I don't know. They might kill her. But it's a very interesting, and I keep reminding myself, especially this season, that show, the first season ends where the book ends, and so these writers have managed to create 4 additional seasons and tell these 4 season long stories. for that amount of time, which is astonishing. So anyways, I just want to let people know I'm watching, and I think it's really good television. Even though it breaks my heart at times, which very few shows do. So, yeah.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I know it's one you have been fully invested in throughout its run.
Yeah. Well,
well, it is.
I do have some gaps. Season 2 in particular, I definitely have some gaps.
Yeah, I know you got some gaps, but even with the gaps, you consistently come back to it, even when you're done with it.
It always manages to pull me back in.
Yep.
And because it has some really good premiere episodes. Anyways, moving from adult television talk to kid television talk. And this is just a weird bit of news in my opinion. There's apparently a possible crossover that might be happening between Stargirl and DC Titans. So here's where I have an issue with this. Don't mix and match CW and HBO Max.
Yeah. And they even got. Yeah, go ahead.
No,
I was going to say.
What I was going to say.
Yeah, I was going to say, and another part of this that I know originally I had on here, Doom Patrol. That was the third rung that I heard might be a part of this as well. So,
but the Titans and Doom Patrol makes sense because they've already crossed over.
Right.
Now, and God, how do I put this? We already know Doom Patrol and DC and Titans exist in the same universe. I don't know if they can effectively explain how Stargirl and the Justice League, because really Stargirl is pretty much JSA's show, exist in that universe.
Yeah. So I guess further confirmation on this crossover, minus Doom Patrol, did happen this week. I guess Brett Basinger, who plays Courtney on Stargirl, shared a photo on social media of her and Beast Boy Ryan Potter, along with Jeff Johns and Eric Seaton, in Toronto, because Titans is still filming their 4th season. And so was her in costume, and she's like, "Look, what a coincidence! How did I end up in Toronto?" So so possible crossover. At least looks like it is going to happen. And Stargirl has concluded filming their 3rd season, so I don't think it's all of the cast. But you're right. These shows, I know Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover on the CW did establish that. I think Titans is Earth 5. I think Doom Patrol is Earth 2019, I believe. I think whatever year Doom Patrol premiered, I think is what the year that they set for their Earth. And then Stargirl's on, I believe, Earth 2. So I'm thinking that some funky timeline stuff is going on here, or it's like whenever Jay Garrick crossed over onto Stargirl and the JSA. It wasn't our Jay Garrick from the Flash on Earth Prime version. It was, that Earth's version of Jay Garrick. And I think in this situation, it's going to be the DC Titans version of Stargirl, not the Stargirl that we see every week on CW. That's my theory right now.
Cool.
Yeah.
I also am behind on Stargirl, and we all know Titans is not at all in like my upper threshold of shows that we cover on this that I like.
Yeah. I know.
When is Titans coming back, by the way? It always surprises me when it's like, oh yeah, did he forget about us? I'm like, yes, I did.
I believe it comes back in November.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's good because honestly, we've been looking at the calendar and we're like, man, what are we going to watch? And see, that's the one silver lining of Titans. Just when we need content, and they're like, here we are. And I'm like,
here we are to give us content. Yep.
Great. I'm glad to have something to watch, but really, I don't know. Yeah. It definitely, that show, I think, as the seasons carry on, I think they find their voice more. I think, though, the second season was probably better. Even though the third season had a very strong start, it quickly just became season one again. You're like, really? You took about 5 steps forward and 10 steps back, really? But those are conversations for another time. We do have 3 shows to cover, and one of them 3 episodes. Although, as many have already stated, there's a reason why they dropped all 3 episodes of Andor, and that is because they all go together, and it's one giant episode. And I watched it. I do remember what happens in the beginning and what happens at the end. I have a lot of iffy parts in the middle.
Well, I'll be happy to fill it in because I was locked in with this show. I really, as I told you last night, I really, really, really enjoyed it. So,
well, yeah, okay. And you also told me, like, it's because you're big, like, you love Rogue One. I love Rogue One. I have said that many times on this podcast. And every time you see a damn trailer for one of these shows, I always say, oh, it looks like Rogue One. Which excites me because I like that feel. Which aesthetically, mainly because I don't recall any sand happening in these 3 episodes. But aesthetically, I really love how this was shot and the cinematography, the set design. I really like it. Logically, I could not get the fact out of my mind. I could not stop thinking about, like, man, Diego Luna, he looks older.
Yeah.
He looks older. And it's also, I think my biggest mistake going into this was not rewatching Rogue One before, so that I could see him. And I know we're getting Saw in a future episode, but just so that I could, and maybe it's not my biggest mistake because that's his ending, and we're looking at his beginning. And I will say this: I really do appreciate how they used flashbacks.
Yeah.
I think out of all of these Star Wars shows, they have most effectively used the flashbacks, especially at the end. Just a beautiful scene. Again, little dialogue and just this portrait of how he ends up being taken pretty much from his family.
Yeah.
And even though there's debate about where the parents were for everyone and everything, and were they killed, but he was taken and set on a new path. And then, I don't know, 20 years later, even though he looks like it's more like visually 40 years later, it's about him being redirected once again into this rebellion and this fight. And so then automatically, well, my mind just goes like, okay, so what happened between the kid getting picked up and where we find him at the beginning, which I know this is going to get a second season. I know we have 11 episodes instead of that stupid 6-part miniseries crap. So they definitely have a lot of story to tell. And I hope that these first 3 episodes show that we're going to, like, it's a statement, we're going to play with time and we're going to play with it very, very well. So, yeah, you go from there.
Yeah, I completely. As far as the aesthetics and everything, you're right. I mean, I loved it. I mean, it felt real to me as far as it's being very grounded, very to your, and I'm glad you posed that question because I haven't, seen many people talk about this. What happened in those intervening years when Marva, Andor and his adopted father picked him up and you're
looking at for his sister. Like that's the first thing he does is it's not a rebellion. He's not fighting with his adopted parents. He's on the hunt for his sister who he was taken away from. Yeah.
Taken away from and he's like doing these odd scavenger jobs, and I think that's this is the type of world building. And I know a lot of people, some of the complaints are is that it's slow and it's this, that, or the other. But for me, this hour and a half of zip by. I mean, I never once felt the urge to like pick up my phone and look because I was like bored or whatever. Because, like you said, it is what the effective use of the flashbacks. He's looking for a the way the series starts out, I love how they, in universe reference the Battle Before Yavin and really established the time period, what we're looking at here, 5 years before Yavin. The aesthetic as far as, the atmosphere, a lot of parallels with Rogue One, I mean, because it was also a very crowded city and stuff. But, he goes to that brothel looking for his sister. And you're right. I mean, why is he motivated? What has he been doing? Has he been doing all these various odd jobs and scavenging? Not because he's trying to be off in this grand rebellion, but this is a very core story of like trying to learn his roots.
Well, we don't know that. We don't know.
Or not learn his roots.
To learn your roots, or feeling a responsibility to find that, and maybe he didn't realize she was still alive until recently. Like, I think that they are going to end up explaining that time period.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say is, while you were talking, it made me think about how something that stood out to me in that first episode, and specifically the opening sequence where we see Andor and the action that kind of starts the whole show. It's the same thing of how we're introduced to him in Rogue One, because he kills someone in both of those. But it's a very different response from him, where by the point we meet him in Rogue One, he kills someone, doesn't blink twice.
Right.
But in this one, and I remember watching it and really thinking that is fascinating, of just how he responded in such a way of like, oh, the guy's faking, obviously, like, I'm not a killer. So I'm wondering, is this his first kill? I don't think it is, but it definitely feels like it was unintentional. He's not used to doing things like that. But so maybe we're going to see how throughout the next few episodes, or throughout the next seasons, about how he does become that type of person where it's like, I'm going to always kill my enemy. Like, far.
Right. Yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a good point, because I mean, when we meet him in Rogue One, he's like, I've been in this fight since I was 6 years old, and I mean, clearly, and I think with the flashbacks, they introduce, especially like whenever he's on Kenari. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, when he's there, and he's looking over that big quarry, and you're right, there is a lot of debate about what happened to his birth parents. Were they a part of a expedition that crash landed on that planet, and these kids are Lord of the Flies, or what was the origin as far as how they got there, or was this his birth planet, and in the Republic and then the later Empire, minded and did things to create a situation where we
that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that that's his home planet, but the parents are missing because of actions from the Empire, and then you had older ones who were trying to protect the young ones, and they see the crash, and very interesting. But now I'm just thinking about, okay, so we don't know where the sister is. We know she's still alive, but we also don't know how she got off of Kenari.
Mm-hmm. We don't, and that's So and to your point about the kill, when he kills the two rent-a-cops or the Imperial contractors. I didn't think about that until you raised it. How the Cassian, whenever he killed the informant in Rogue One versus this, you're right. I mean, it was a very different reaction. Like you said, it could have been maybe not his first kill, but he definitely, I think we will see the evolution, as you said, of him, how he became this very cold-blooded. The ends do. The means do justify the ends, and
speaking about the rent-a-cops, Cyril Card. Okay, I spent, I want to say, all 3 episodes looking at this man's face and being like, "You look so freaking familiar." It drove me crazy. I could not. I'm like, where have I seen you before? I looked it up on IMDb. I have not seen pretty much anything he was in ever. But I think he looks like a very young version of Rob Lowe. And I think that's why I keep
that's good.
You. Even though I am supposed to not like him, I actually do like him.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that to be another thing that intrigued me and I thought was different than a lot of things I've seen in Star Wars before, where it's not that, we get to finally see someone like a part of, and it's not even like he's a part of the Empire, but like very low ranking. So he's not a stormtrooper. So we don't get to meet someone who's not a stormtrooper. And but they also, I think Star Wars tends to make those characters very evil. This guy's just trying to do his job. And wants to advance, but also, and I also personally love the speech he gave to his troops because it's so unique.
It's uniquely bad.
Yes, it's so bad, but it's so bad that it makes it good because of how the actor plays it. You're like there's just something about it that I really enjoyed. Just how much he wants to do his job and he wants to do quote unquote the right thing. But he doesn't have that experience or that tactical confidence to actually get the job done.
I think this guy. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the last thing before I forget, because I will forget making this joke. I find with Star Wars, I was thinking about this too. I was like, kept comparing it to the MCU and how with MCU, we often see Hydra infiltrate all of these like good organizations. And they're always like, "Hail Hydra." And like, so for the rebels in Star Wars, do they just go around infiltrating the Empire and being like, "Hey, may the Force be with you"? Because I swear, every Star Wars shows it's all about infiltrating the Empire. And there's always this code.
Well, I mean, and Cassian speaks to that. I mean, to your joke. I mean, he's like, they're so fat and proud and happy. You just walk in and just do, he was able to lift that box that, I don't know if Luthman, set that up just to test, because he clearly had Cassian on his radar.
Yeah.
And was this just a test to see if he could have the wherewithal to live up to the reputation and yeah, we do want to recruit this guy into our nascent rebellion, or if it was or Cassian just really had a knack for these things just because he clearly was like a odd jobs kind of guy.
Well, I think he's a survivalist. I think he knows what to do to survive, and I think that comes from where he was raised. And we don't know how long those kids were without their parents or an adult around. They had to learn really fast and potentially for a long period of time of how to survive where they were. But Luthen, okay, I think it's just a test, because Stellan Skarsgård is not known for necessarily playing the hero. So I feel like, as a viewer, I'm being tested and being like, are you good? Are you bad? I understand you're a rebel and there's a line and it's blurry, but Star Wars tends to say that and then make people either good or bad. So, I don't know. So that's all I could think. I'm like, this is a test for me as a viewer.
Well, and I think that's the thing. Well, I mentioned earlier how real and how well-rounded. I couldn't help but think about House of the Dragon, we'll talk about later, and Lord of the Rings, as far as Rings to Power, that where we're watching these shows in this space together right now. How well-rounded these characters, and also just the larger Star Wars universe too, as far as just the difference, why this show is working for me better than Boba Fett did, and even Obi-Wan. I mean, Obi-Wan was just a fan service nostalgia trip, call it for what it is. It was good, but not breaking any new ground. This show's totally opposite, where it's, screw nostalgia. We're not playing the nostalgia card at all. But also the characters are so rich. I mean, just like we were just talking this evening, like how they have developed Cassian in the span of these 3 episodes, more than just the familiar. We were familiar with Cassian because of Rogue One, but we didn't get a fuller dimension of him. And like you noted with Krill, the Imperial contractor. In 3 episodes, this guy, like you said, it could be either he tried to get to the Imperial Academy and washed out, and now he's reduced to working for this contract as a contractor for the Empire, or he's trying to trying to earn his chops to shit, and we'll see him as the series progresses, working his way up the ranks as an Imperial soldier. And this is sort of he learning from these mistakes that he had as here on Ferrex. He grows from that, and so and all the supporting characters too. I mean, they're very fleshed out people, and they did a good job of world building. Where I got invested in these characters early on, just like I did with characters in House of the Dragon. Whereas what we complain about with Rings of Power, I just never did. I mean, even though I've continued to watch that show, I'm still not invested in these characters because they don't seem like real people to me. Even though all of these are fictional characters in a fantasy world.
Well, elves are really fictional.
I know, but you know what I'm saying. I mean, it's just they're relatable. I mean, and even
I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. Yeah. I also find it humorous that you keep bringing up Rings of Power just to bash it.
Yeah, well, I can't help it. I gotta have a.
But I'm fine.
Yeah, I won't bash it anymore tonight. At least I won't bring it up anymore. But I just had to. I mean,
bring it up. He's going to bring it up during House of Dragon.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I won't. I use the card up with Andor, but like I said, there's so there's so many good things about this series that over the course of the next, I guess, nine remaining episodes for season 1, and then I guess I think I saw where they're about to start production for season 2 here shortly. There's a lot to explore in this universe during this period that leads us up to the events that we will eventually see it in Rogue One.
Looking forward to it. We do have to move on because we have 2 weddings to cover.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about that today when I was watching She-Hulk, or AKA Just Jen. Jen. Oh, man. So on She-Hulk, Jen attends a wedding. And that's basically the premise of this episode. She attends a wedding. Her lawyer friends, gal pals, do a divorce. And that's pretty much it. That's what happens.
Yeah, man.
Self-contained.
Yeah, and they call it out. Yeah, they call it out too. It's just funny. I was saying how with Andor, I was locked in. She-Hulk, I mean, we've talked about it before. I mean, the show knows what it is. I mean, they clearly had fun with it tonight when Jen breaking the fourth wall. Where she's like, this is a wedding show. Yeah, I know. I know it's at the most inopportune time when everybody thought Matt Murdock was going to show up, and you know what? We're going to just do our thing.
I did think like, oh, is Matt going to be a wedding guest? Because it's getting later in the season. We're just like, come on, Daredevil, get here. I still like the show. I think I like it a little bit more than you do, Will. And even though I'm very over Titania.
Yeah, me too.
I get what they're doing with her character, but she's definitely more annoying than a villain. And sorry, I'm losing my voice. But yeah, I just wish that they wouldn't have used her as much as they are. I think the whole organization that is out to get Jen's blood so that they can analyze it, find a way to kill her, find a way to make themselves into Hulks. Who knows? Much more interesting. But I also get why they're holding back on that card. At the same time, I find that this show, it's a little bit confusing with the journey of Jen and identity.
Yeah.
Because I feel like we do a lot of flip-flopping, where to win the lawsuit last week, she had to say she fully embraces being She-Hulk. And to the point where now she's going to a wedding and she wants to be She-Hulk at the wedding. And then she just ends up being just Jen at the wedding until Titania taunts her into becoming more. Yeah. So, yeah, it's just a little flip-floppy. I did think the whole divorce case was cute. The Mr. Immortal. Yeah. Power.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I like the Shire's sister, Renee Elsby. I mean, I really like her character, Mallory. But I will say the whole like back and forth bickering between Mallory and Jen's friend, it took me out of the scene. I was just like, I don't know. Like I said, you're right. You do like this show better than I do at this point. I will freely admit I did laugh. There were a few moments I did laugh out loud. But there were some moments that it was just kind of like cringe for me, and I'm just sort of like, I'm clearly not the demographic that they're going after here. And I do find Jen, you're right. I mean, it is very flip floppy with Jen, and also I just feel like they're just every week it's just like this. I just feel like it's the same like predictable thing where she's like questioning herself and questioning, the I guess feeling the uncertainties of in your early of how you're going to be in your late 20s, early 30s kind of stuff, and it's just sort of like, okay, I've seen this now for 6 weeks. Move on.
Mm-hmm.
So it just feels like I just feel like it's a sort of.
Go ahead.
What's that? No, I was just saying. I just feel like it's. I mean, I know my talking about it's repetitive because, quite frankly, I just feel the show's repetitive.
They weren't in a courtroom.
No, but the dynamics are the same.
Like, I think because they keep going back to identity and She-Hulk versus Jen again and again and again. That's where my sense of repetitiveness is coming from.
Yeah.
Okay, so because She-Hulk is like literally a 20-minute show, and we talked about exactly what happened in it. We're going to move on to the green wedding that happened on House of the Dragon this week.
Yeah. Man, this show. This show.
Finally. Take it away, Will.
This show, just every week, it's my appointment TV, and this week's episode, we're midway point in the season. We got another little slight time jump, I guess, but not much. Just mainly, I guess Viserys just seems every week it's just the week he's finally going to kick the bucket, because they had a bunch of head fakes throughout this episode. But this is my first foray into a Game of Thrones wedding, and it didn't let me down.
I completely. Everybody knows I've watched Game of Thrones. I love Game of Thrones. And probably because the way that this whole episode is structured, the ending, it's not a wedding. Like, I know they get married, but it's not a wedding. It's a celebration of the betrothment and the start of a week-long of festivities that leads to the wedding, from what I understand.
Yeah. That's correct.
Because, I mean, as you put it, Viserys can kick it at any freaking time. And other things that happen at the wedding or the celebration dinner, they're like, nope, we are definitely going to get married. And before even you can wipe up that man's blood that's just on the ground of Laenor's lover. So yeah, I have heard people say that this show is great. And I say to them, you can. I've watched boring television shows. Go freaking watch Boba Fett, okay?
Yeah.
It's not boring. Even though there's a lot of dialogue, there's not as much action. And yeah, there are dragons, but you don't see them all the time. There is so much dialogue and there's so many characters, and you have to pay attention because things come back very much unexpectedly. But we'll get into that a little bit. I do want to say something about Daemon, though, to kick things off with full spoilers. I find what struck me like a good day after watching this episode was when Daemon killed the Crab King, we didn't actually see it.
Nope.
Then in this episode, where we finally meet his wife and we're like, okay, cool, we get to see this? No, we don't. Nope, we're not going to see this girl anymore. But again, we did not actually see him. And I'm not saying he didn't kill her. I'm not saying that. But I find the choice, the deliberate choice, because they could show that. They have showed her Christian beating a man's face into his skull. They show Daemon killing his wife. But they're not. And I'm trying to figure out why. And I'm leaning towards if we actually as a viewer see it, rather than just hear about it, rather than just like watching the steps leading up to that, but actually see it, would that make us feel like automatically cast him in that villain role? Be like, oh, there's no redemption. But then again, the characters he's killing, we don't really have any allegiance.
We don't.
I'm very curious about the decision making of when to show characters kill others, because Sir Christian, someone who we're rooting for, good guy, completely gets his dick cut off by Rhaenyra today. But and then automatic, like, he gets neutered and then he goes and kills someone. Like, guy goes off the deep end. And we're able to watch that. But with Daemon, who we have started the show and been like, you're the bad guy, we don't actually see him kill people.
No. It's almost like the mystique or maybe not having it show Daemon. We know Daemon's getting his hands dirty.
Right.
But we don't, but I think the carry, like you said, maybe it's to, if we see the act, it completes the mustache twirling villain role complete, whereas by not showing it, we keep that level of, Damon's a badass, but he's also an asshole. He also kissed his niece. He's a groomer.
It's her.
Yeah, he's still trying to do it. He's a groomer, but then he's impotent, and then it's just, yeah. I mean, I think it is. I think you're right. It's a deliberative choice to keep that ambiguity of whenever he does these evil acts. To help us help us not, like you said, maybe it is to keep us from completely writing him off as the bad guy for this story, even though we know he's one of many bad guys. But if we show you getting his hands dirty and actually crushing Lady Royce's head in, then we can't, it's like, as you used to say, we can always play that card once, and then once you play it, then you can't do it again.
Yeah.
And I think it's a similar sentiment here with that.
Yeah. Yeah. I will laugh if they show us him killing like, and it can't just be a random character. It has to be someone, like, and even killing his wife, like, to me, because we've heard about her so long, only in the 5th episode, but we've heard a lot about her for a while now. That's still more of a serious, like, kill. So, I'll be on the lookout for that. And Daemon is just, he after one underage girl, only for another girl who that girl Lena, she's probably 18 now, 17, yeah, probably. 17?
Yeah, it's probably, yeah.
She's very smart, and immediately spots him and is like, I've heard that you're no longer wed, please.
Yeah.
they trained her. But speaking about the twins and Valeriana and Corlys, what do you think about the Corlys's negotiations and the fact that it's told Laenor is gay?
Yeah, there was so much to unpack in that whole sequence. So, as I said before, we get the view of Viserys on the boat, thinking he's going to get, he's even going to make it to the island. And then when he gets there, it's the power position the power play that Corlys makes here, because he was, Corlys was disrespected years ago when he offered his daughter to Viserys, and he doesn't take her hand. Even before that, whenever they were trying to propose taking action against the crap eater, I mean, there's just been all these indignities that have built up over time. And then Corlys is like, all right, I'm gonna make now that you need me, I'm gonna milk this for everything I can. And so he makes them come to the island, and then they have a negotiation where Viserys, Corlys has the upper hand here at this point, and he uses that because he wants the Valyrian name to continue. But then Viserys every now and then will have that moment of brilliance where he's like, okay, I'll grant you that while she's queen. But whenever she goes, the Targaryen name is going to go forward. So so that's again what we were talking about before about 3-dimensional characters and in the game in what it's called Game of Thrones. I mean, it's always the political maneuvering of all the parties, and at one point Corlys has the upper hand, but then Viserys surprises us every now and then, and he can like he did with when he realized what Otto did with Alicent, and he sees the writing on the wall and how he's going to make sure the Targaryen name moves forward.
Right.
So that was really cool, and also Corlys's wife with Rhaenyra, how their conversation, because with how Corlys is really wrapped up in how he about this power thing, and she's just sort of like, look, I gave this stuff up years ago, let it go. But Corlys is like, no, he's screwed me over many times. I'm going to milk this, and he did. So that was very.
But wait, I disagree with that. To me, he needs to get over it. But she also was making a plea. You realize that you are feeding our son to vultures.
Yeah.
Because she knows Westeros. First of all, they're very much aware that he's gay. And if
they are
out.
Also,
huge scandal.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, it's just like Rhaenyra, as long as Viserys is around, she's the hair and everything. But the moment that he's gone, everybody's going to be going after her to kill her. And we're trying to get her removed from the throne so that they can put a man on the throne.
Yeah.
So I much more, it was not really about the past for her. It was more about looking forward and being like,
you're right. Yeah.
Get son killed.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. I mean, I think that was you're right. I mean, I think that's part of the, not only the past, but you're right. She was looking towards the future and like what they were putting their son in to by having this arranged marriage. And speaking of the fact that he was gay, I mean, it was very progressive in the sense that where he and where Leonora and Rhaenyra were on the beach in their conversation, and they're like, let's just do, our parents can arrange things, but we're going to have our arrangement. and
then fucking Joffrey, which that's a red flag number one, to have the person be named Joffrey. Yeah, that person is going to be stupid and screw things all up.
Yeah. He was so, I mean, he had just played it cool, and all, but no, he couldn't. But also, but Corlys, I like the way they integrated a lot of things that you see in present day were real, in real life, with people thinking that, we'll just pray the gay away, or it's just a phase they're going through, and they'll come around to their senses and stuff, and not accepting people for who they really are and what their sexuality is. So I mean I like the way they integrated that into the story. to really to show that I think his mother, she's like clear. She's like, our son is who he is. Corliss was like the old school guard. He's just going through a phase. He'll get over it. He'll marry this woman and bed her, and then he'll come to his senses. And I'm glad they addressed that point. And then when they had the scene on the beach, it just made it even more powerful for the two of them, for their very own reasons, to have their open marriage, which I mean, I guess everybody does in that kingdom, but to acknowledge it and them to have that mutual understanding and respect for one another.
Another big player in this episode was Allison, and this is really her start of playing the game, where somebody who I spotted him in, I think, episode 2, and I was like, who are you? You're going to be important. And I was like, Lars Strong, aka Clubfoot, from what I understand, found himself in the garden talking to Queen Alicent, and he said some stuff.
Yeah.
Very deliberate stuff.
Spilled the tea.
I'm like, so you got eyes on Alicent? Huh? You're making sweet eyes at her, the power and all that. But here's my thing about this guy. I found it, the way he approached it, I was like, you freaking little finger. You better stop right now. But he doesn't go full little finger, and here's why I say that. It's because he does tell her that the tea was delivered at request by the king. Initially, he was making it seem like she ordered the tea for herself, which was not the case.
Right.
Now, that being said, I don't think Alicent heard it. I think that as soon as he started talking, and the fact that he left that detail for the very end, by that point, her mind was already gone, being like, I was lied to. Maneuvered this to make sure that they played me, because they played me to the point where I had my own father fired from his job, and now I'm alone here. So I love that conversation. I love that scene. I'm very curious now to see more Lars Strong around, and just see what his end game is. I don't think he's after the throne in any way. I think it's more about trying to find himself on the council. But I like him, and I like his relationship with his brother too. I can see that they could have easily made that into a bigger rivalry, because you have the brains and the bronze. But they seem to really like each other. And so I don't know why, but I that struck me. But this conversation obviously leads to why we're calling this the Green Wedding, and it's because Alicent shows up late the festivities in a beautiful green gown and makes it known to her people that she is at war.
Old Town stands with you.
And Viserys is like, I think I fucked up. I don't know why. I think I fucked up. I don't know how. I'm going to die.
Yeah, that scene. I mean, everything about it. I mean, whenever she walks in, and it was just because prior to that, she didn't have her. She didn't have her own voice. Whenever
she was
Otto left,
she was on. This was her moment of becoming a queen.
Yeah. I mean, just the way she carried. I mean, she truly did. I mean, and then just the timing of it. She, because she knew that Viserys would be in the middle of his speech, and then when she got to the stage, to the dais, and looked at Rhaenyra, and said those things to her, and she's like, lines drawn to everyone. No quarter is going to be given. And and I mean, and that was Allison has grown as a character, and because it's even in this episode, because I mean, early on, I mean, she was still stuck, holding the babies, and when Sir Crispin comes by to her chambers to whenever they had that conversation, and like you said, the show does build on itself, because you do have to pay attention, because she was having that conversation with Nera earlier about the duties and being a mother and the boring life that she basically has now, and then we see that, and then it culminates in the events at the reception.
Right. But that would be one moment where the reception or the activities went on, and there was a dance.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. One of my favorite movies is Pride and Prejudice, and it's a recent one with Keira Knightley. And they have, in that movie, they have a few different ball scenes where there's all of these conversations, and you're following the characters throughout the ball and eavesdropping on different conversations. And then this episode, for I think that dance lasted a good 15 minutes, if not more. It built, and there were so many partners and different conversations that were going on. And the way they timed it to the music, and it was just so fascinating, because it felt like a duel. You felt like you had all of the sparring going on, and then the most unexpected thing happens when it culminates, and all of a sudden you just hear like somebody's getting their butt kicked. Oh, that's not good. That's Sir Christian, and man, he had the upper hand, and that guy is dead. Joffrey is dead. And just the heartbreak, how much heartbreak is shown on Laenor and Rhaenyra's face during all of that. But like, it really escalates right when Viserys is watching his daughter and his brother in the distance, and these actors, I'm just gonna say it because it's very strange, but they do have chemistry.
They do.
They have this chemistry, and you're like, this is weird.
Yeah.
But why do you have such good chemistry on screen right now? It's so weird.
Yeah. Oh God, that scene. I mean, everything about leading up to, because during the dance you have Damon. Let's get it back to Damon real fast. But how and first we have the brother Royce talking about we're here to get our vengeance because you killed our sister. You killed my sister. And Damon's just sitting back. First Damon walks in there being bad. One, he's not even supposed to be there because Viserys has kicked him out of the kingdom. Right. Right. One. Two, when he is there, he gets a seat at the head table. Then he he sits back, makes eyes at Lenora. He's like, oh yeah. And then, he has this whole thing with the brother and I'm going to be back to get my land. So just have that ready for me. And then the dance happens, goes out there, and you're right. The chemistry between Millie and Matt Smith, I mean, it's you're right. It's supposed to feel icky, but at the same time, you're just like, damn. And then, and then because of all this stuff and the things that are swirling with this dance and Viserys seeing it, and you can see, I mean, again, Patty's just like every episode, give this man an Emmy, because the way he just plays that, where he's seeing his brother and his daughter and all the things that had transpired and the confusion that's going on with the dance, and it's building it up. That one chef's kiss, that scene. Yeah. It's
It is a beautiful act. I wouldn't even call it a scene at this point. It is a act of television that is just perfectly executed. And it's really Patty who gets to do his all-eye acting throughout half of this episode, where you just see his reactions to everything from his brother to his wife to his daughter. And to hear him like, Rhaenyra, like you're worried. I do, like, not you're worried. It's more, it always impresses me how Viserys can go from king to father. And I think that's why his relationship with Rhaenyra so endearing. And something that you're really rooting for is because, and he's even said it early on, he's not going to be around forever. But there's this uncertainty of how much he loves her above everything else. I found it funny when with Corlys, that negotiation, because I'm like, dude, Targaryen name will live on. You have a son. What are you talking about? And I don't think he's forgetting, but I think it's just, at this point, he wants the Targaryen name to live on as in this place of power, even though it's killing him and it's his daughter at complete risk. But I think that's why the Targaryens are so fascinating, and we've talked about this before, is because each one of them goes back and forth between this, I want to be free, I want to be normal, I want to be able to live out my desires without like being criticized, to no, I am the throne, I am this power, I have duty and a responsibility, and I think that is what royals deal with in normal life, is that you strive to be normal, but at the end of the day, your blood says otherwise. So I mean, we see that present day with the House of Windsor and with Queen Elizabeth and Harry and all that. I mean, and he went the Sir Christian route, and even though I know he's a celebrity and all, but I mean that they went their quote unquote normal as much as a former royal life. As a former royal can have. And, and I think Sir Christian in his naivete was thinking that, he and he's
so naive, like naive. And it's gut wrenching. And then by the end of this episode, you're like, so is Sir Christian our villain? He might be teaming up with Alicent. So, anyways, I think that it wraps it up for the Green Wedding. On that note, Will, why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Yes, you can find me on Twitter at Will and Polk, WILLMPOLK.
And you can find me at SJ Belmont, SJBELMONT. Please follow our crew on Twitter at CNN Nerd. Friend us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and visit our website, www.cnnerdpodcast.com. But most importantly, rate, follow, and comment on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Good night, geek out. You're welcome.